Vegan is often a moral, it's a health thing for some people. It's an anti-animal cruelty thing for other people. It's a moral thing, it's an ethical thing, and for some people it's a spiritual thing. There are many reasons to go vegan. It's an ecological thing. Now, I'm not going into all the details because that's a whole talk, which I gave the other day. But clearly you preserve water, land, air, and the whole planet by going vegan. You create enough food to feed the planet 7 times over. Starvation is a non-issue if the whole world goes vegan. You save somewhere between 10 and literally 29 times more energy when you go vegan. You save 1.5 million gallons of water, like a whole swimming pool per year when you go vegan. It goes on and on and on. Okay, so there are many reasons. For me, the spiritual is one of the most important, but there are many reasons. Now, the next question is, fine, you go vegan, now what? What does that look like? And so, in my 40 years, I began to see, well, what are the mistakes that people make? You've heard me talk about some of them. There are serious mistakes. Why are they serious mistakes? 1, they're bad for your health. 2, you fail. That's not very good. It's not good to fail. It's not good to get unhealthy. It's not good to get spiritually imbalanced and then rebound and say, well, meat eating's it. And you see people do that. I mean, a classic, real classic, which definitely has happened in a leader of the raw meat movement, is that he, as a fast oxidizer, so the first thing, you got to know your constitution. Because if you're eating a high-protein diet when you need a low-protein diet, not good. The research shows, at Stanford Medical School, is that genetically, 75% of the people need a higher protein diet. 25% need a low-protein diet, a higher complex carbohydrate. It has nothing to do with blood type whatsoever. It's a genetic thing, nothing to do with blood type. That's a myth. But that's a different discussion. Okay? This typo thing is a total myth. It's based, I'm going to digress just because I want to deal with that. It's based on the concept that the original human, it was a meat eater, which is not true. 3 million years ago, when they find humans, it's very clear, Robert Leakey, the top anthropologist in the world, pretty much says the original human beings ate like chimpanzees. They didn't eat chimpanzees, they ate like chimpanzees. That's 97% vegan and a few rodents, okay? That's not a heavy meat diet. And that fits with the original 6,000 years ago bear sheet diet. Now, how did that happen? Did they make that up? Well, what was happening is the whole world, from the Sumerians, the Anunnakis, they were all vegan. The world was a lush Garden of Eden. You could turn around and take a bite out of the environment. That was your food. There was no problem. Meat was totally not what was. So it was extremely easy. In the first 1,600 years of the 6,000-year cycle, it was all live food, vegan, was the natural diet, okay, in our cycle. But also perhaps 3 million years ago, when the world was very, very lush, it was extremely easy. You just couldn't miss, okay? And that's the key. As the weather changed, and we had this and that, we did have the Ice Age. Well, in the Ice Age, there weren't a lot of vegetables around. In the Ice Age, people did eat meat because that's all you had. What's the problem with that? That wasn't the natural diet. That's 10 or 20,000 years ago, not 3 million years ago. So that's one. Second thing that's wrong is that, according to the blood anthropologists, people study blood anthropology, Laura Powers being the key where some of these people got their data and misused it. So I'll say that again. They got their data from Laura Powers, the people who eat right for your blood type, and misused it. She is a real medical anthropologist. She's not a naturopath, and they did that. And her position, because I've talked to her, very displeased with what they did with her data. Basically, there were multiple blood types. Okay, basically that's what we're saying. There wasn't one type O blood type. So that's just wrong. Just scientifically wrong. That's her position on it, and she's like a master at that. Not people who just took her data and try to make a story out of it. So this eat right for your blood type, you need to be type O's need meat is a totally fallacious. The only thing we can say about your blood type is if you're type A, you need to be vegan. That was other research. It shows that type A's, when they're vegan, live about 15 years longer. If you're type A and you eat meat, fish, and chicken, and eggs, big problem, eggs, you live to be about 61 and die, generally of heart disease and cancer. That's by another book where they did 5,000 autopsies. They actually did some science. Type O's generally live longer, but it doesn't matter what they eat. They're going to live longer. Type A's will live to 76 if they're vegan. That's the only thing we can say about blood type. So when I see people who are type A, I say you really do need to be vegan, and eggs are particularly bad for you. And basically, the research on the science on that is that things like eggs, meat, fish, and chicken actually cause a whole negative immune reaction in the body for type A's. That's what we're talking about. Again, the research, another group of people who really did this more scientifically said that otherwise it doesn't matter what your blood type is. Your diet doesn't require eating meat or not eating meat. So I'm just making that point from a science point of view. So that's a whole mythology that they created, which has been very destructive because people say, well, I'm type O, I have to eat meat. Well, I'm type O, I don't eat meat. I did pretty well. David Wolf doesn't eat meat, and it goes on and on. Brian Clemens is type O, he doesn't eat meat. We seem to do quite well. So I just bring that because it's a major bad myth, major misinformation. Generally, I can go on and on about the misinformation of eat right for your blood type, but that's not our point of our discussion today. So I want to kind of go back to the question. The question is, genetically speaking, according to the recent, like it came out this year, is that
2012.
Yeah, 2011, 2012, I'm not sure, is that 75% of the people need a higher protein, 25% need a lower protein diet, genetically. Now, I have observed, and I've taught since really my first book on this topic, conscious eating in 1990, it was pretty much 60-40. So that was my estimate, so it's clear. Okay, that being said, you get people who are fast oxidizers, thinking they're doing the greatest thing in the world by being fruitarian, and they're miserable. And then they take some meat and say, this is the best thing in the world, because they actually needed a higher protein diet. They get confused and saying it's meat rather than spirulina, chlorella, and nuts and seeds and all the things that you can do as a vegan. Does everybody understand what I just said? And in their confusion, and some of these people have some charisma, they just said, that's it, meat's the cat's pajamas. It's the greatest thing in the world. Missing the point that they were on the wrong diet. Their fruitarian diet was absolutely the wrong thing. And that is how people fail in the vegan world, because they really don't know their constitution. So you have to know your constitution to be a successful vegan. And unfortunately, the vegan world, because it's anti-protein, is saying the optimum diet is high complex carbohydrate, low protein, low fat. Totally the wrong information. It's optimum for 25% of the population.
Slow oxidizers.
Yes. Slow oxidizers are what we call sympathetics. So that piece of information is really bad. And then the low fat is bad for everybody. And that's why I have 25 to 45. If you're low fat, that's 25%. But if you're A fast oxidizer, you need higher protein and more fat. That's up to 45%. And there's a mix in between because there's genetic variation. So these cause real difficulties for people, and they cause real failure. So to be a successful vegan, you have to be somewhat thoughtful and kind of really understand your constitutional type, and therefore organize a diet that's really best for you. And key. Now what I find in general, that's why I have variations in observing the success with the diabetes, is protein need is somewhere between 10 and 25%. And I kind of checked it out because I have about 10% protein because I happen to be a slow oxidizer. And basically, the Center for Disease Control Study, which is the general standard thing, is saying almost the same thing. They say you need between 10 and 30% protein. So I'm pretty close in what I've observed. Then I looked at the fat thing. And again, the low fat, as I say, is detrimental to everyone for many reasons that I've already explained. And I observed our people. We actually observed what they were eating and measured it, okay? And people had between 25 and 45% fat in their diet on the phase 1 diet. That seems to work according to your constitution. And again, if you're a slow oxidizer, you have less fat, and fast oxidizers more, but it's not that straightforward. People have that variation. And the third is carbohydrate. So I found, particularly with the diabetes, that people need somewhere between, I'm going to say 25 and 45% carbohydrate at phase 1, and at phase 2, 30 to around 50% carbohydrate in their diet. That works well. The average vegan recommendation is up to 70%, which I don't think is so good, and is connected with increased triglycerides as well. Because carbohydrate in the blood gets transformed by insulin to triglycerides. And triglycerides actually aren't good for your heart. This is a little bit why, I think I mentioned the other day, that the research shows, according to the Archives of Internal Medicine, the main causes of heart disease are trans fats. Those are cooked, boiled, and hydrogenated fats, and a high carbohydrate diet. So that fits, because the high carbohydrates are definitely associated with more heart attacks and so forth, but also create more triglycerides. So that gives you kind of an overview of it. You have to be a little bit intelligent in the application of this to be successful.